reach the public. Within TIP, there are many different programs and partners that all work together toward a similar mission, to keep Israel safe and to protect our global Jewish family. And now to introduce Jerusalem Online University, Mrs. Rebecca Shore.
Hi, my name's Rebecca Shore. I'm the co-writer of Israel Inside, and thank you for your attendance today. Jerusalem Online U is a long-distance online learning program aimed for college students and continuing education for the 21st century. We at JerusalemOnlineU.com are breaking new ground in outreach by creating original feature films, interactive learning, and engaging film classes. You are with us today because JerusalemOnlineU.com is the proud producer of Israel Inside, which to date has been seen by more than 100,000 people. The film was screened around the world at close to 200 locations and across all continents, aside from Antarctica. The polar bears couldn't get their acts together in time, apparently, nor could the penguins. The large successes of the film were made possible by our wonderful partners and supporters, some of whom are the Israel Project, who is co-hosting this webinar, Stand With Us, who brought the film to college campuses, El Al, who sponsored a free flight to Israel, and Keshet Tours, the Center for Educational Tourism in Israel, who has designed a unique Israel experience to complement the movie. Please welcome Harvard's most popular professor and lecturer and best-selling author, Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, host and narrator of Israel Inside.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm delighted to be here to be sharing with you some of the ideas that went behind the making of. I'm speaking to you right now from Ramat HaSharon, city just outside Tel Aviv. But of course, when you talk about Israel, any city is just outside Tel Aviv. What I thought of doing is maybe sharing with you, just for a few minutes, some of the ideas behind the film, sort of the philosophy behind it. And then we'll open it up for questions, for your questions, whether it's voice questions, whether it's questions through writing. So first of all, the idea behind the film comes from positive psychology, which is my field of expertise, what I teach, what I taught at Harvard, what I now teach in Israel at the Interdisciplinary Center in Herzliya. And what is positive psychology? Positive psychology is a subfield within psychology that says the following. Up until recently, the field of psychology has really been focusing on problems, on what doesn't work, on pathology, on schizophrenia and depression. In fact, if you looked at the whole field of psychology around the year 2000, what you would find is that for every one journal article, one study, one experiment on happiness, joy, well-being, job satisfaction, you would find 21 articles on depression, schizophrenia, and toxicity in the workplace. So that was the ratio, 1 to 21. Positive psychology says, let's shift that pendulum. Let's also, not only, but also study those things that make life worth living, such as love, happiness, joy, and so on. Now, this does not mean that we stop studying depression or anxiety. Simply what it means is that we also focus on what is working. Second, what is positive psychology? If I go to a therapist now, what's the first question that you will ask me? The first question will be, what's wrong? What's not going well in your life? Or if my wife and I go to a couples counselor, the first question that he will ask us is, why are you here? What's not going well in your relationship? What are the problems? Or if an organizational consultant goes into a company, the first question that you will ask is likely to be, what are the problems? What are your weaknesses as a leader, as a manager? How can I help? Now, these are very important questions, but what positive psychology is saying is that it's no less important to also ask the positive questions. For example, a therapist would first ask me, what's going well in your life? Or would ask my wife and I, what's going well in your relationship? What are you? What's working for you? Because you wouldn't be here if nothing was working. Or an organizational consultant would ask, what's going well in your organization? What are your strengths as a leader? Start with these questions and then building on these questions, also deal with the things that are not working well. In other words, positive psychology focuses on what works. This is the field of positive psychology, and it has been shown to have remarkable effects on therapy, on couples counseling, on organizational consulting, on parenting, on teaching, you name it. More and more research is showing that when we also, again, not ignore, but when we also focus on what works, we get remarkable results. This is exactly the lens that we applied to this film. So much of the conversation about Israel, about the Jewish state, is about things that don't work, the problems with occupation, or the problems with internal issues, the problem with the wars, the problems with the government, the problem with the people, problem after problem after problem. Now, Israel is not perfect. However, if we want to be realistic, we need to also focus on what is working. This is the message of positive psychology. And again, whether we do it in organizations or whether we do it when we discuss a country. And what this film is about is shifting the pendulum, is making the conversation about Israel more balanced, more fair, more, in other words, realistic. Because if we don't focus on the things, on the positive, and we only focus on the negative, then we get a distorted picture, whether it's of an individual's life, or of a couple, of an organization, or of a nation. This film is about shifting the pendulum in terms of the conversation. Now, this has a lot of value. Just speaking about what worked has a lot of value for Israel. It reminds me that when I taught my class in Harvard, before that I was involved with the David Project, an Israel advocacy organization. I'm one of the co-founders of this organization. And I used to do a lot of work explaining the conflict and the situation. And what really surprised me is that while teaching my class, I did not mention Israel, except for the fact that it's my home, so many of my stories revolve around my country. But I didn't mention it, I didn't talk about the conflict. All that I did was present positive psychology. And many people came to me after that class and said, Jewish people would say, I've never been as proud to be associated with Israel, or I feel very close to Israel now. And it wasn't by speaking directly about Israel. It was simply by presenting another side of Israel, or of an Israeli living in that country. So we don't, while I think it is important to defend Israel, and when people misrepresent the conflict, to speak up. I always said when I was working with the David Project that imperfect words are better, and an imperfect voice is better than perfect silence. So I think it's important to speak up. However, it's no less important to also highlight the wonderful things about Israel. And this is what this is what we hope at Jerusalem Online University, this film is doing, is to highlight the wonderful things about this imperfect yet wonderful country. So this is it for me for now. I'm not going to lecture anymore, but what I would love to do is to hear from you, your questions, your comments. Again, either voice or in writing.
Tal, while we're waiting for people to write in their questions, I do know that when we started developing the film, the whole film developed with our initial conversation. I don't know if you remember that, where we really started crystallizing what were all those positives. I don't know if you recall that.
Sorry.
Still have the notes. And so much of the film really came out of very personal thoughts that I think you brought to the conversation about your experience of Israel. I guess it's an extension of what you were teaching when you were at Harvard.
Yes, very much so. The question is always what do we focus on? So, for example, if if I ask someone, what are the problems with the United States? Everyone can list problems, and there'll be a long list of these issues and problems. But if I ask someone, what are the great things about your country, the United States, they will think about those great things. So it's very important what question we start with, and when we brainstormed about the film, yes, the questions that we were asking are, what are the positive things? What do we like about this country? And for me, this was very personal. Why did you come back? As I say in the movie, many people were telling me that I was crazy to return.
I feel that when people have watched the film, it's one of the reasons it's so successfully resonating is because it's so personal. I think we were able to put our finger very much on how people feel. People come to me and they say to me, it's exactly what I feel about Israel. You were able to get it across in the film. So I think that was part of the success because it was coming from a very personal place, and a lot of people experienced the same positive. I think the positives we highlighted were very universal for people who have been here.
Tal, here. I was lucky enough to be with you in New York when you were presenting the film, and one of the audience members there asked a very good question, and I want to repose it. He said that seeing this film, showing it to mainly Jewish audiences, felt like it was preaching to the choir. We're the people who do know what happens in Israel beyond the conflict. Who else should be seeing this film? Like, where else should we be directing this? Because it has such good, inspiring messages in it. Where else would it be effective?
Yeah, it's a very important question, and it's one I've heard a few times about this film. Let's say we show it to a Jewish audience or to a pro-Israel audience. Are we preaching to the choir? And I have two answers to that. First of all, it's not about preaching to the choir as much as it is about helping the choir sing better. And this is a big difference because people watching this film hopefully will get some ideas, some ways of presenting Israel in a better, more positive light. So, for example, so here is Eliav, one of the stars of the movie, has to say something. אני באמצע הרצאה חמודי. So, and hopefully we'll get some ideas and some points to be able to share with other people from this film to help them sing better. So this is one thing. The second thing is that I hope this film will be watched by many different people, not just by people who support Israel, because it can help change the conversation. Do I think that someone who's against Israel will change their mind after watching it? I don't think so. But I think, and what we attempted to do, what I hope the film does, is it humanizes Israel. Because right now, so much of the news dehumanizes the conflict, dehumanizes Israel, dehumanizes what Zionism was and is fundamentally is all about.
Well, I will say that I know a portion of the film focused on agro-technology from Israel being used in India with the water and the hydrating the fields. And I know that the Israel Project actually organized several screenings in India, so hopefully it'll resonate there.
Tal, one of the things that we thought might be interesting for people to hear about was, do you recall, there were many things. The problem with the film, our greatest challenge was how to fit so much amazing people, information, etc., into 1 hour. So there were many things that we wanted to be in the film, and in the end they ended up on the cutting room floor, as we say. But if we recall, we did have an angle that we were going to take that we weren't able to put in, if you recall, about the idea of the contradictions.
Yes, this is an idea that I must have been thinking about for a long time. The idea of contradictions. There's a lot of work in my field of organizational behavior psychology about the importance of learning how to reconcile contradictions. For example, some of the greatest leaders, organizational leaders, national leaders, are ones that are not are not fazed by, are not afraid of contradictions, are able to reconcile them, to live with them, to have that coexistence of contradictions. For example, how to be, on the one hand, to micromanage when necessary, and at the same time to also delegate and be open to ideas, because that is what great leaders do. Sometimes they have to micromanage. Sometimes they have to closely watch a process to make sure, extra certain, that no mistake is being made. At the same time, they also know that if you want to get the most out of people, you must delegate. You must give them freedom to fail as well. So you see it in great leaders, in successful organizations. You also see it in Israel, and I think this is one of the quote-unquote secrets of its success. So, for example, one of the things that comes out in the film is how Israel is not just modern; it's ultra modern. It is, it has, one of the most important centers of technology. At the same time, Israel also very much relies on ancient wisdom. I mean, here everyone in school studies the Torah, the Bible. You can feel that tradition even in the secular population of Israel. So it relies on ancient knowledge and on modern knowledge, and it's able to live with that. So that's one contradiction. Another contradiction, which is one of my favorites, I must admit, and again is highlighted in the movie, is the idea of chutzpah. Israelis are aggressive. Just driving home now. I came back with David from extramural activity that he had, studying the Torah, Bible, and we came back home, and on the road, I mean, the aggression that we felt there was unbelievable, and yet at the same time, people are warm, they're caring. And generous and kind and benevolent. Again, a contradiction coexisting here. And it's one of the, the interesting things, but I also think it's one of the fuels, because when there is tension between contradictions, when there is tension, there is also energy. I mean, if you think about it, this is the way that, those of you, engineers or physicists, how does electricity happen when there is a difference in potentials? That's what causes the tension. That's what causes the energy, and you certainly have a lot of it in Israel.
I recall that one of the great lines you had was the friction. The friction was called one of my favorite contradictions. We also talked about was how independent Israelis are. Right? You have at a young age, kids are so independent, and yet parents here are extremely overprotective. But they do give independence at the same time. So it's a very funny one. Like, people will put their kids in like 1,000,000 layers when it's not so cold out, or etc. It's that kind of thing is very funny as well. Also a great contradiction. You had a great line also that the people of the book have become the people of the internet.
Yeah, and again, I don't think it's a coincidence, because when you rely on ancient wisdom and you really study something in depth, you're also open to new ideas.
Right, you talked about that core, innovating around the core.
Yes.
Well,
it was also just very interesting living in. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was wondering, for those of us who have not been able to see the movie, and have only the exposure basically of Israel from a distance, literally. Me just finding out that I am Jewish. It was something that was hid from our entire family by our grandparents. And so once I had learned that, I decided I wanted to know everything about it. And only thing I can say of the positive side you really see is when you purposely go out and look. And this movie is something I've been hearing of, but you don't get access to it like you would want. And I know it was screened in certain areas, but it's so little being available to, it seems like, most of Americans. And I was wondering, how can we teach and show other Americans that the Jewish people are not these evil people that I keep, the way they perceive us, that Jews are the ones starting the war and throwing the bombs, and they're the ones starting it with the attitude and causing, Palestinians that they're doing things, that everything's being initiated by the Jewish people, and once I told somebody that, I found out I was Jewish, they won't even speak to me now. They're no longer my friend, and I was like, well, if that's how you feel, you can't be a friend, so, I mean, I don't understand all this coming from someone who never, wasn't exposed to this from birth, only finding out later. How do you talk to them? I see the beauty
well,
of
if I could encourage, what's your name?
Bobby.
Hi, Bobby. Thanks for calling in, and thanks for asking such a great question. To answer some of what you're asking, the film is going to be made more widely available. We had a free screening that was gone on for a few weeks, but I would really encourage you to go to the JerusalemOnlineU.com website, and there is a lot of opportunity there for you to do a bunch of things. You can arrange to bring a screening to your hometown. You can arrange to take some classes. We've got an Israel Inside Out course where you can get yourself and your friends who want to be your friends educated about Israel. It's a fantastic, we have a mini course with all the top experts that you can take. It's all video, really well done. There's tons of opportunity there for you to get yourself educated and for you to get more exposure to finding out about what Israel and the Jewish people are all about.
That would be great, believe me, because I feel like I'm defending not only Israel but the entire Jewish nation and my beliefs on a daily basis now since just learning of this knowledge a year ago. And I'm 38 now. I'll be 39 in just a few months. So you can see this is all new, but you only see the news. You see the war, the violence, and then I see from the other side what I look up and find, and there's beauty. There's people getting along. I mean, Tel Aviv, think about they're bordered on every side by people that are against them, but they go on like every day is their last, just happy, and it's a major metropolitan place. I mean, I see this beauty in it all, and I don't understand the hatred. I just don't get it. I'd love to tell somebody. I noticed. But how do you tell people this? Even at my own church, I'm like, I found out I was Jewish, and I got people that actually started talking about me. It's like, you believe in Jesus? He was a Jew? They're like, no, he wasn't. I'm like, yeah, he was. Study your Bible, and then they started talking about me because I started reading the Torah and the Tanakh and all this, and they're like, why are you doing that? Why are you taking Hebrew classes? It's like, oh my goodness.
Well, I think that we're gonna. I think that I wish you all the luck in the world, and like I said, I encourage you to come to our JerusalemOnlineU.com website. I think you'll find lots and lots of opportunity there. I think the first place we all need to start is, I think Tom would agree, is with ourselves. And the first thing you have to fill up is your own cup, so to speak. So I encourage you to get as educated as you possibly can, and I really wish you the best of luck with that.
Great. I would like to take a question that came through the chat, and this is from someone who's been living in Israel for 20 years, and her question is, after having been here for 20 years and dealing with the system and working hard, and as she puts it, the the glow of living here has worn off, because initially there is a lot of excitement. You know, what are the ways of still contributing to Israel? So here, you know, I don't know if I know how to answer this question professionally, but let me answer it personally. Because you know, returning to Israel after 15 years or longer of being outside, and initially coming back, you know, it was a party. You know, coming back, everyone welcomes you, and you meet your friends again, and family, and it's you know, it's an ongoing simcha. But then after a while, you know, life begins, or begins again, and there are difficulties and hardship, and you know, as I said earlier, there is the aggression and the rudeness, and what do you do after that? And you know, it's a little bit like there's a honeymoon phase, and afterwards there is you know, real life. What do you do after the honeymoon phase is over? And what I decided to do again, and I went back to my field of expertise, which is positive psychology, and it's the same advice that I would give a couple after their honeymoon phase, which is focus also on what is working. You know, one of the things that I talk about in my workshops is that, you know, every night before I go to bed, I write down at least 5 things for which I'm grateful. One of the things that my wife and I do on a regular basis, once a week, is tell one another, you know, what do I appreciate about you, and she tells me what she appreciates about me, and we do it because in the day-to-day, when things are busy, when we're running so much, then very often we forget to also focus on what is working, and then we begin to see a distorted picture of what you know, life is really about, whether it's Israel or our partner, or the United States, or our company. And it's important to also remember to focus on what works. My favorite word in the English language is appreciate, because appreciate has 2 meanings. One is to say thank you for something, and that's a wonderful thing to do. You know, the first word that a religious Jew would say in the morning as he or she wakes up is modeh. Expressing gratitude, I thank the Lord, and but the first word is gratitude. In psychology, as I mentioned, a lot of research shows that when we express gratitude, we benefit a great deal from it. So that's a good thing to do, to appreciate, to say thank you for something. It's a moral thing to do, not to take for granted. The second meaning of the word appreciate is to grow in value. To grow in value, which, for example, the economy appreciates, or money appreciates in the bank. And the two are connected. They're connected in that when we appreciate the good in our life, the good appreciates. When we don't appreciate the good, when we take it for granted, as we so often do, the opposite happens. The good depreciates. And what this film, to a great extent, is about is appreciating Israel, not ignoring what is not working, not ignoring the problems. I mean, these are out there. You know, as Bobby said earlier, they're out there. They're in the news. We're exposed to it constantly. It's about also not ignoring what is working. It's about appreciating the good, so that the good appreciates, so that we have more of it. Those of you who speak Hebrew, it's also about the connection between leha'arich and erech, to value and to appreciate something, and to grow in value. So thank you for your question. If you have questions.
Yeah, there's a question here about focusing on the good. There's little to improve or do something about, and when we ask questions about what is wrong, we can then try to improve the situation. So I think maybe you need a little bit of clarification here about that. Maybe meaning, does good mean that you ignore the bad? It seems that.
Does focusing on the good mean you ignore the bad?
Well, it seems that it means that you're not really seeing room for improvement. Don't we have to? Seems to be. Don't we have to be? Always have our eye on the negative side in order to keep being better. So how does improvement and getting better jive with being focused on the good?
Yeah. So this is an important question, because one of the criticisms of the whole field of positive psychology is, if you start to focus on the good in the relationship, you're ignoring what's not working. If you just focus on what's going well in your life, you're not dealing with your sadness or depression or anxiety. Now, it happens to be the exact opposite, actually. Why is that? Because what more and more research is showing is that when we also, again, my emphasis is on also. It's about shifting the pendulum, not ignoring what is not working. When you also focus on the good, it actually gives you more strength, better ability, better capacity to deal with what is not working. They say about Gandhi that the most important thing that he did for India was that he made India proud of itself. He made India proud of itself. Now, was India perfect in 1947? Of course not. Is it perfect today? Of course not. No country ever was or ever will be. But what Gandhi understood, and he was obviously a very important figure in the history of India, a great leader for the Indian people. What he figured out as a leader was that if you want to be able to deal with difficult times, and India was facing a very challenging, difficult time in the 1940s, you first need to start by focusing on what works, which means to make India proud of itself. This is also the purpose of our film. It's to help Jews, Israeli supporters of Israel, become proud of Israel. There's a lot to be proud of, and this can help also deal with the difficulties and hardships, and looking inside and outside in terms of dealing with the conflict and the problems.
There's another nice question here, that despite all the challenges and negative conceptions that Israelis feel, that is said about Israel around the world, how are Israelis able to remain positive regarding the future of the state of Israel and their own personal collective futures? It is very interesting. Tal, you're the happiness guy, but Israelis are ranked very high on that happiness scale, aren't they, relative to other people?
Yeah, this is...
Which is also a contradiction.
Yes, exactly. Many people ask me, how is it that Israel is in the top 10 of the happiest countries in the world? Alongside countries like Denmark, Colombia. How is it that Israel is up there? Way ahead the United States, for example. And the answer here is relatively simple. It's something that we do touch on in the film, and that is social connections. If you look at the happiest countries in the world, again, countries like Israel, Colombia, the Netherlands, or Denmark, they're not the wealthiest countries in the world by any stretch of the imagination. However, consistently, they're the countries where the citizens say that there is very high levels of social support. In other words, where relationships are a priority, whether it's relationships with one's family, with one's friends. In Israel, there's a word which is chevre. Chevre. What chevre comes from chaver. Chaver is friend, but it's sort of a slang, and what it means, it's like Australians would call it mates. It's like it's friends, but it's close friends. It's friends who are with you sort of all the time, supporting you, and there is this circle of friendship which is there constantly in Israel. You see something similar with in Latin American countries. Again, not among the wealthiest countries in the world by any stretch. However, very strong social connections. social support, relationship as a priority. In other very wealthy countries where the values have changed, have been somewhat warped, what you see that is that levels of happiness are a lot lower.
So you feel that, so Tal, you feel that that optimism is coming very much from part of the actualizer of family that we spoke about in the film. This idea of people feeling supported. We're all in it together.
Yes, I think it's that way, and again, the research shows it so consistently in Israel. It's the strong family connections. It's the being together, the support that contributes so much to the well-being of Israel.
Another question that got asked is that this got asked, if you remember, Tom, when you were in that press conference, that if we only see, if we only try and talk about the positive, aren't we sort of avoiding the issue of all the negative stuff?
Yeah, you know,
it's in particular.
Right. To avoid the issue of the conflict would mean to basically bury your head in the sand. It's impossible to avoid it. It's there all the time. It's constant. It's persistent. There is more of it than about Israel than about any other country in the world. And again, this film is simply about shifting the pendulum a little bit toward a more fair representation of this country.
I liked how you put it. You had said it's changing the conversation, having a different conversation about Israel.
Yes. Yes, it's about.
You had made a point. Yeah, you'd made a point then also that also was very interesting from a psychological perspective. This exhaustion about dealing around the conflict all the time. If you can step aside and change the conversation, it can give you a different perspective to actually be able to deal with the problems. If you recall, you had spoken about that. Yeah.
That's right. Yes. So it's very much, and it's related to a question we just got online from Croatia. So first of all, congratulations on a wonderful soccer win yesterday against Ireland. It was 3-1. I watched the game, and the question here is, relating to the conversation, how would you increase the flow of positive information about Israel in the world, in schools all around the world, at universities around the world? So, again, this is the reason why we made that film. So if you want to get access to it, go on Jerusalem Online University, go on our website, and you can get the film and show it at any university, any place. We've also just created a curriculum around the film, a curriculum that will be presented at some camps this summer. Hopefully,
we have over 30 camps.
Over 30 camps. This is wonderful. With 30 camps this summer, and we can take it to schools, to universities. Once again, to educate people, whether it's people who support Israel, to teach the choir how to sing better, or to people who don't know those things about Israel, and it would help them a great deal to have even if critical, a more fair and honest understanding of the country.
I think also along the lines of this question, like anybody who's been here or lives here in Israel appreciates that, yes, there is the conflict, but that's not our day. That's not what everybody lives, breathes, eats, and sleeps here. There's a whole other life that goes on beyond it, and that's what this film is trying to show. And it's reality. I mean, it's the way the media portrays it. You think that everybody here lives 24/7 in constant conflict, and that does not reflect life here on a day-to-day basis. I would imagine you'd agree with that.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, people find it strange when I say that we feel safer here, certainly with kids, than we do anywhere else in the world. So, our kids, when they play in the playground, they're very often by themselves. They go to friends by themselves. They can be out late by themselves. There is more security and safety here. Obviously not during war, when there were Scuds landing next to our house during the Gulf War, or people in the north during and south during the more recent wars. Of course, it's not safe, and it's scary, and it's terrible, and it's war. But that is some of the time, and it's a small portion of the time, and hopefully it will be over at some point. We're all hoping. My grandfather said that when my father was born in 1943, he said, "I hope that, unlike me, my son will not have to fight." When I was born in 1970, my father said the same thing. "I hope that my eldest son will not need to fight, join the army and fight." And I said the same thing when David was born, my eldest son, 8 years ago. So we're always hoping for peace. At the same time, life goes on here, and it's a wonderful life, and it's a safe life, and we hope that it will become even safer.
Someone asked a question about, this is about the film is trying to portray Israel in the cutting edge, but because technology, everything is evolving so quickly that, first of all, we didn't cover many things, and that is definitely correct. We had enough materials and technologies to probably make. We could have made a mini-series instead of whatever it is, a 60-minute film. And then there's also the issue of that things are going to become dated. That's always an issue when you make a film. But I think that we definitely have a certain amount of shelf life, and that was brought up, suggested that maybe we will recut in sections. That's always a possibility. And we at Jerusalem Online U love to make sequels, and we are already thinking very seriously about what's going to follow up to this Israel Inside movie. And God willing, we will just also be able to produce new material that's going to be current and not feel at all dated.
Yes, and I'd just like to add to that, the thing about this film is that it revolves around the actualizers. There are principles, and these principles are timeless. So these are ideas that you see in Israel today, and many of these ideas, I'm sure you would have seen in Israel from the days of King David. So let's take the idea, for example, of learning, the love of learning. You saw it in those days where people learned, and you see it today, or you see it in terms of chutzpah, always challenging. You saw it then, and you see it today. The idea of family is certainly central to the Jewish people from time immemorial. So you see all these ideas, these principles. Now, what happens? Well, today, different things are invented. We didn't have Intel or Microsoft or any of the big companies working in Israel 2, 3, 4, almost 4,000 years ago, I think. But you have but you have the manifestation of the same principles today, same principles that you had then, and this is why I think this film will also be relevant 10 years from now, when the ideas of today are no longer relevant, because today things change not by the minute or day, but by the nanosecond. The second thing I want to comment on is a question that I see coming up a few times from different people from around the world, and that is, again, but if you don't focus on what is not working, then you're not going to improve. You know, I must say I'm very critical of Israel. I've written many op-eds in Israeli newspapers talking about things we need to change, whether it's in the economy, whether it's in dealing with the conflict, and I've written critical against right-wing and left-wing governments that we've had since the time I started writing op-eds, which was in the early 90s. So I am critical of Israel, but what I try to be is not just critical of Israel, I try to be realistic about Israel. As I said, you know, when people ask me what's the secret of leadership, I say that I actually have 3 secrets, and they say, yes, what are they? And I say the first secret is reality. Second secret is reality. And I will leave it up to you to guess what the third secret is. Yes, you're right. It's reality, and this is the essence. This is what we want to bring. This was the objective of making this film, because right now what people are getting about Israel is not reality. They're getting a very distorted view of what the country is about. They're not getting the other side, the wonders, the beauty, the essence of what drives this country, and this film is about correcting that. It's not about ignoring what is not working. This is not what we're asking for. This is certainly not what I would like. You know, for there to be no criticism of Israel, for everyone to just praise and love without being critical. No, it's about being real. And what we felt at Jerusalem Online University, what we still feel, is that Israel is not giving a real, honest, fair representation.
That's correct. There's a question that came in that people are afraid to visit here. It's kind of related to what you're saying, Tal, and how do you get people over that fear? I think a good first step is get them to watch the film, because I guess one of our goals in writing and making the film was we wanted to give people sort of a virtual taste of life here, and because it is really seen through Tal's eyes, and it's really a personal view of Tal, but it gives a very intimate view of what like Tal's saying, it's reality. It gives a very nice slice. And yes, we didn't deal with all the conflict, but the truth is that most people get such a diet of that on with their media intake that a little sprinkling of Israel inside hopefully will go a long way to reassure people and help them be more open-minded about actually coming here and experiencing it live.
Yes, and I cannot recommend this this more. It's a beautiful country. It's a tiny country. You can basically visit the whole of Israel, or at least drive through most of Israel in one day. But and yet you can be here for a lifetime and never have enough of it. It's such a culturally rich country. It's such a vibrant country. It's such a fascinating country. Again, a country of contradictions, a country of problems, and a country of wonders that I highly recommend visiting this country or revisiting this country if you've already been here.
That brings up another contradiction that we like to laugh about or talk about, was this idea Israel's one of the youngest countries in the world, and yet it's one of the oldest. And that goes along with what you're saying about how fascinating this place is.
Yeah, right. They say in Israel that when you go into the field, you shouldn't dig, because you don't know what you'll find. Because everywhere you look, there's something ancient, something from thousands of years ago, and yet everywhere you look, you also see the most modern buildings and technology in the world. So,
yeah,
yes.
Very fascinating. Another question came in here, which is a very good question. The book Startup Nation with Daniel Signor and Saul Singer, an impetus to creating the film. Were they involved? Was it an independent project? And do we plan on making a connection to them the singer and senor in order to continue spreading the message. Well, to be quite honest, Saul Singer had a very nice contribution to this film. Along with our initial discussions with Tal, we spoke to a number of other people when we were researching the film, and one of them was Saul Singer. I had the great pleasure of having coffee with Saul and picking his brain for several hours. We obviously read the book. We feel Startup Nation was an excellent intro. It was the first foray into rebranding Israel, which we want this film to accomplish. And Saul had a lot of very interesting ideas and opinions and contributions that he did make to the film, and he is credited in the film, as a matter of fact. And we just wanted to join on that initial bandwagon that they got going of trying to brand Israel in a new and more positive and better way. So yes, there was a lot of inspiration from Startup Nation. There was some collaboration, and of course we are always interested in working together. One of the things we over here at Jerusalem Online You believe is that the way the Jewish people is going to overcome the difficult times that we are dealing with these days vis-a-vis Israel is by working together. We like synergy, so we really do hope that we can have projects together, work together. Many of our screenings have been a beautiful collaboration in communities where multiple organizations and cities have gotten together and sponsored showing the film. So that's a really great example of the kind of thing we want to see happen.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hi, I wanted to ask a question about how you think we can increase positive appreciation of Israel if Israel is held to standards that no other country on earth is expected to reach. If we're held to levels of moral perfection in terms of military action, etc. As an Israeli, I live just down the road from you, actually. I'm down in Beit Shemesh. But I was wondering how we, as Israelis, can hold on to our pride in our value system and avoid losing our happiness because of the way we're perceived and the unrealistic expectations that are put on us.
So I think it's very important to point out to people the unfair standards that Israel is held to. I'm not saying that it's high, because I'm glad Israel is held to high standards. I'm saying unfair standards, and by that, what I mean is exactly what you said, that Israel is what's expected of Israel is perfection. Meaning, whenever Israel makes a mistake, it's it's plastered over the news. People make a huge deal out of it, and no other country in the world is or has been held to these standards. So it's okay to hold Israel to high standards. It's not okay to attack Israel based on unrealistic standards. It's a little bit like, let's say Israel is attacked for doing something wrong. And only Israel is attacked for doing something wrong, then people would say, well, what are you complaining about? You agree that Israel did something wrong. And I would say, yes, I agree. However, why is Israel singled out? And they would say, because I'm just concerned with Israel. Why are you changing the subject? And here is the analogy that I would give. Let's say there's an article in the newspaper that writes about African-American thieves. What would you say about an article that writes about African-American thieves? Well, I would say that it's a racist article. Why? Because they are singling a group. There are white thieves, there are Chinese thieves, there are thieves from every ethnic group. Why single out the blacks? And most people would agree this would be a racist article if blacks were singled out. However, this is exactly what's done to Israel. Israel is singled out for its imperfections, which is fine to highlight, but not when it's held to different standards than than any other country in the world. It's okay to criticize Israel. It's important to criticize Israel. It's not okay. It's unfair to hold Israel to unrealistic standards, standards that are that no other country in the world is held to. And let me also bring that back to the film. If a film was made about the wonderful things in Italy, you know, the great food that they have, the great wine that they have, the openness and the generosity of the people. You know, just came back from Italy recently. Wonderful, wonderful people. So much to positive to say about Italy. If a movie was shown about them on you know, National Geographic or PBS, where Israel Inside was shown, or anywhere else, would anyone say, yeah, but what about the mafia, and what about, you know, the terrible governments that they had over the last decades, and what about the economy? What, you're just showing about their great wine, food, and family values, and how wonderful they are? I don't think anyone would say that. If they did that about just about any country in the world, but they do say that about Israel. I think that's singling out Israel unfairly. Yes, hold Israel to high standards. Don't single it out.
I think that you know, part of what we kind of wanted to do with the film was in the same way that really anti-Semitism, the new anti-Semitism is really anti-Zionism. You know, bash Israel instead of bashing the Jews, and we kind of wanted to turn that on its head and really kind of get away with saying a lot of great things about the Jewish people, being pro-Semitic, as we say, by using Israel as the protagonist. And we felt that this was a great opportunity to turn the tables on what Tal's, you know, in terms of what Tal's saying, to turn the tables and use this as an opportunity to get away with saying a lot of great things that we might not ordinarily get away with if we were speaking about individuals or about the Jewish people. And by putting in the context of Israel and Israelis, we were able to get a lot of great points across. Do we have any other questions, Tal?
We have some questions in chat. Someone asked how they can get, yeah, how they can get in touch with me. So through the Jerusalem Online University, if you send an email there, it will also get to me. And you can also check out other things that we do on Jerusalem Online University. We have a course there on positive psychology and Judaism, and maybe I can just say a couple of words about how this course came to be. So we were talking one day about how so many Israelis go off to the Far East, to India, to Thailand, to look for the answers. And while I'm all for traveling, you know, I travel a lot. I think it's a wonderful thing. Now, I was saying that you know, so many of the answers are in our tradition. Again, whether we're Orthodox or not, it doesn't matter. There's just so much wisdom in our in the Torah, in the Mishnah, in the books written about these books, and I said, and I see how much wisdom there is in our tradition, even more now that I'm involved in positive psychology, and see that the modern research actually verifies many of the ancient wisdom. And that's how the idea was born. We said, why don't we make a course showing the parallels, the connections between Judaism and positive psychology, whether it's the idea of gratitude or the idea of relationships or the idea of resting, ideas that we find both in modern science and in ancient wisdom. So that, you know, that's another course that you can find online.
People have asked where did the idea of Israel Inside come from? And it's interesting, it also came from one of our JerusalemOnlineU.com courses, which was the Israel Inside Out course, which is, basically everything you need to know about Israel, the history, the politics, with great speakers, and it's a video course. And one of the very popular classes was a one-shot class on global contributions. And it turned out it was being, again and again, people's favorite class. And so that's where we got the idea from that class of, wow, we have a great potential here to make a movie. And so the movie evolved actually from the feedback that we were getting on that class.
Great. So we're now after 9 o'clock Israel time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'd like just to say a few words in closing. So first of all, thank you very much for joining us, for investing the time. It means that you care. Second, I'd like to invite you, if you haven't yet visited Israel, to visit Israel. If you have, to visit it again. Third, when you look at this film, again, this is a message that I talk about, maybe the last minute of the film. Make that film personal. Again, it was Carl Rogers, who's a famous psychologist, said in the 1950s, he said, what is most personal is most general. This film is to some extent about my story and why I came to Israel, but it's a general movie about Israel. The actualizers there are generally about Israel, however, they're very personal. So think about them in the context of your life. Think about what your family means to you. Think about what you love to learn or where you want to grow. Think about where you want to make the world a better place. Think about all the 6 actualizers in the context of your life and apply them, because they're not only the path to creating a successful, thriving nation, they're also the principles that can guide and do guide toward a happier and more fulfilling life. So again, thank you all for joining us, and I wish you much happiness.
Along those lines, just to add on what Tal's bringing up, is very much along the lines of what we were doing with that camp programming and the extra curriculum that we developed around the film. Israel Inside You, we had the great pleasure of having Tal come back and give us some additional filming opportunity with a young Israeli actor named Effie Bibi, and we basically took every actualizer and gave new material to deepen the understanding of it on a personal level. This is what Tal's been saying just now, and it's a great thing to be used in camps, in schools, in JCCs, in continuing education, and we really hope people will be able to get onto our JerusalemOnlineU.com site and take a look at that and sign up for it. The other thing that's very exciting is we've partnered with Keshet Tours, which is an educational tour company here in Israel, and they have designed, together with them, we have designed an excellent way to visit Israel in a different way. Even if you've been here before, it's a great way to see Israel through the lens of the actualizers. And I think, Tal, you're scheduled to actually, speak to the group once, and it's a great way for people to immerse themselves in Israel and really deepen their personal understanding of the actualizers and see how it works here and how it works for them.
So thank you all, and take good care. Bye-bye.
Good night. Goodbye.